Welcome back to Redefine Parenting. I'm your host, Veenu Keller. I want to welcome you to Spanglish World Network and Her Network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both Zingo TV app on the respective app stores and on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Today, I have a very special guest. And I say that, and I know I always say that with all my guests, but this one really is special. Him and I have been friends for over a decade. We have been in the personal growth field together. We have grown together. We have laughed together. We've cried together. He's, I would say, a brother from another mother. And he has been such a pivotal experience in my life, helping me see things through different lenses, helping me actually grow through what I'm going through. And he has this program called Get Up and Grow. And it is a fabulous opportunity for all people who listen to his podcasts on his stations to really understand that we have so much trauma. We have so many childhood stories that we continue to, get engulfed in all the time. And we constantly relive that pain. And what happens when we relive that pain? We constantly relive that experience. And one of the ideas that my guest Tony Rodrigues, proposes is, what if we just grew through what we go through and we didn't have to feel that pain anymore? The idea of Get Up and Grow is that you have to grow through what you go through. So you stop going through it, stop experiencing the pain, and therefore stop passing it on to our kids. We have to do the work ourselves to grow through it so we don't put our kids through it and we stop the cycle. And that's really what it's about. It's like stopping that cycle. And so without further ado, Tony, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wealth of knowledge to our listeners so they too can understand that there is opportunity to shed what we've gone through as parents and give our kids, that's what it is, redefining parenting, right? Like, how are we going to redefine it for our kids?
Absolutely. Look, I thank you, by the way, for having me. And I apologize for my camera. It's a little off today, and I'm not sure exactly. I'm a little off today, but my other device wasn't connecting properly. So my apologies for that. Yeah, listen, and again, what you do here on this show is absolutely incredible, because who doesn't need a little bit more help going through or helping? Who doesn't need a little more help parenting their kids, right? Because nobody's an expert at it. I mean, there's people that are experts, yet even the experts have challenges with their own kids, right? Because
I
it's
do.
difficult to, as do I. It's difficult to be, as the old saying goes, it's difficult to be a prophet in your own town, right?
Mm,
Uh, so what we've discussed in the past, is that, and the movement Get Up and Grow is really about helping people grow through what they go through, as you said in the beginning, because until you grow through it, you keep going through it. There's that question that says, why does this keep happening to me again? Well, because you haven't learned the lesson. And many times with our kids, the same thing. Why does he keep doing that? Well, because he hasn't learned the lesson. Perhaps you're not teaching him the lesson the way you should be. And why is it that we do that? And I'm sure that you've covered this many times in here before, but we're going to touch on it again, is because we're creatures of habits, the patterns that have been ingrained to us since we were kids. And oftentimes we're taught things by people who didn't know what they were doing. Because the
right.
reality is, and I heard this from a dear friend of mine as well. And she said that she told her daughter, listen, honey, this is my first, this is my first time being a mom to a 15-year-old girl. Right?
Right.
Especially when it's your first 15-year-old girl. It's your first time, just like it's her first time being 15. It's your first time being the mother of or the father of a 15-year-old girl or a 15-year-old boy. Yes, you've been that boy, you've been that girl, but you've never been the parent there. What you have been is you have been that 13-year-old. And oftentimes we're just repeating the patterns that we learned back then. How did your mother react? How did your father react? And then
Right.
we forget
Right.
how we felt based on that reaction. We forgot how pissed off we were. And then we get surprised that our kids get pissed off or that our kids disconnect, right? They shouldn't. You shouldn't be surprised, because that's exactly what happened when your parents did to you, what you're now doing to your kids. So
Exactly.
the it's about recognizing the patterns, right? And then stopping it, breaking the pattern, scratching that record, doing whatever you need to do to break that pattern, to break that chain of, in some cases, violence, in some cases, mental, physical abuse, whatever it is, neglect, because so many of us are dealing with things from our past and we bring that forward. And unless we do what the hard work, and it is hard work, and I know you've done, I've certainly done it. That's why you and I, when we met in the Tony Robbins world, is why did you start? Why did I start? We started so that we can grow through our own stuff, except those weren't the words that we're using, but essentially that's what it is.
Right.
Right.
I think it's interesting, like some of the things that you're saying specifically, and it's not even, it doesn't even have to be trauma. Like it could just be experiences that we had as a child. So for example, and I'm very vulnerable on my show. So my listeners know that I'm still growing through some of my things. And that's why I come and I teach this, because I realize, I have the outcome of what it looks like when you don't grow through your stuff, when you parent through the lenses of the pain that you've gone through. Because my kids are adults, I have a 28-year-old and a 24-year-old, and they also now have to grow through what they've gone through because of the way I chose to parent. And I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. And yet I still shamed, I still blamed. Why? Because that was what was used on me to influence me to do better. Like, oh, I know you could do better. I know you could do better. So what did that make me feel like? That I wasn't doing good already? If I could
Right.
always do better, instead of recognizing like you have done a really good job. If you were going to do even better, what would that look like? Because that's the language I use now with my twins, right? Because my twins are my redo. So it's interesting that you brought this up, because it's not even the trauma that I'm trying to save my kids from. It's what I went through to feel low self-worth and low self-esteem. So like I always heard, Veenu, you talk too much. You ask too many questions. I heard, you're too much energy. Like calm down, calm down. And so
Look
when
at
I
you
see
being
my daughter, huh?
I said, look at you being a kid. That's what kids do. Their energy,
Right.
they should be asking questions, right? We should encourage that, not stop that. We're stunting our kids' imagination and growth. We need to stop it. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. And what I was saying is that, and so I see my daughter doing this now, right? Like everyone says, oh gosh, she's a spitting image of you. She is exactly like you. And Samuel's just like your husband, very calm, cool, collected, and grounded. And I said, oh my gosh. So hearing that, I'm like, she can't be that way. She's too hyper. So we're always telling her, Sage, you're talking too much, Sage. You've already asked that question. Okay, calm down. And I realized, especially going through a program last week, is that why am I dimming her light? Why am I doing that? Because I felt the pain. And so I literally had a conversation with her the other day when I was driving her to school, and I apologized to her. I said, I am so sorry for dimming your light, for taking away from you the opportunity to shine bright and shine that energy and ask those questions and talk to us. I never want you to feel that you can't talk. I never want you to feel that you can't ask questions. And I did that because I got in trouble for it and I was trying to save you. And I realized, honey, it's not my job to save you. You have to grow through this the way I had to. Those are exact words I used. You have to grow through this. And so I'm telling you from my heart, I am so, so sorry for not allowing you to be who you are. And from this day forward, game on. You do you, honey. And I'm going to cheer you on and I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. And I just needed to get that off my chest, because I realized in that moment what I was doing. I was trying to conform her to be what I am as an adult, because I was, punished for being who I wanted to be. And I have a great guest coming on soon, William Whitecloud, and we're going to talk about how that becomes a dark shadow. But for now, it really is, in line with what you're saying. It doesn't have to be a trauma. It could be just self-worth and self-esteem that we're
100%.
robbing our kids from.
100%. And listen, I was, and my story, part of my story is that I had a rough childhood. I'm an immigrant kid. My father was a heavy-handed European father, and he was hard on us, man, hard, like in a way that I can never even imagine being that way to my kids. Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, not everybody looks at that way, thinks that way, and they are rough like that with their kids. So I understand where that is, and I understand where that led. I was suicidal at 16, and that's where this could lead, my friends, because it could very well lead to that if you're knocking your kids down so much because you think you're teaching them a lesson, because you think you're making them strong without giving them the tools to actually be strong, without giving them the wisdom that comes with the ability to change and to do that. Remember, they're children. They're not mini adults. They're children still developing those things that and if you are confident, congratulations. How long did it take you to get there? How about you
Right.
instill that in your kids instead of making them, thinking that they're going to be able to do it on their own? And unfortunately, many of the parents that are out there aren't confident themselves either. And sometimes they take it out on their kids, right? So there's so much to be said about that. So it's really important for the adult because you're watching this right now looking for tips on how to help, how to treat your kids different, what to do with your kids. Well, I'm here to tell you that it starts with fixing you, and for you
Yeah.
looking in the mirror, and for you dealing with perhaps some of the demons that you had in the past. And it doesn't have to be abuse, it doesn't have to be trauma. It could just be the sense of abandonment, the sense of not my parents maybe not caring enough, or not loving me, or not believing in me, therefore their self-confidence. And it took me to, at 16, holding razor blades to my wrists on 2 different occasions. And of course, I changed, and I am who I am today. That's another story. My car accident, I died in a car accident on my 18th birthday because God has a sense of humor. But that's a story for another day. Yet, I'll just say this: I had to change. I had to grow. And I'm
Mhm.
going to say to you what I say to myself when I say you, the audience, is I might not have had the childhood that I wanted or the father that I wanted and deserved. But I got exactly who it is I needed to have to be
Absolutely.
the husband and the father that I am today. But I had to make the conscious decision to be different. And you have to make the conscious decision to be different, to be better, because we were taught things by people who perhaps didn't know either. Because if you don't know how to be a better parent today, well, think about what it was when your parents were first growing up. Maybe they knew better, but chances are, at least right today, we have access to the information, even if we don't get it from our parents. Right. So I challenge you to work on you, to work on the man, the woman in the mirror, forgive. And here's the thing that I want to make sure that you're aware. There's 2 things that can dramatically change your life. Number one is gratitude. What are you grateful for? What could you be grateful for? What should you be grateful for?
Mm,
Right?
those are really great questions and great way to reframe what you're going through. You can't be in gratitude and sad or depressed at the same time.
100%. And,
When
be grateful. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's like a little lag. I'm sorry about that. When you are being in depression, because we do depression, like everything, every emotion we do, first of all, we do depression by looking at what is, not happening in our life, what we're missing out on our life, what we lost in our life. And it puts us in a sense of scarcity, a sense of loss. And when you're in gratitude and when you find things that you can be so grateful for, it puts you in a state of abundance. And we do gratitude, right? We are able to look at the things that in our life that are so grateful. And like you said, that, even through my childhood, I was suicidal at 13 all the way till I was 34. That was my answer to escape this life for what I went through. And I know my mom did the best that she could with the tools she had. I know that she probably didn't give me everything I needed, and yet she gave me exactly what I needed to be who I am today, because I would not be here doing what I'm doing if I didn't grow up in the childhood I did. And that is what Tony and I are talking about. You have to grow through that. So it's no longer a pain point for me to talk about my childhood. It's no longer a pain point for me to explain everything I've gone through. And at the same time, it's important that I recognize what I am doing to my children, so I am not protecting them either, because I got to give them what they need to grow through this as well. And to protect them and to assume that her talking too loud or asking too many questions is going to create the same, issues that I had. That's wrong. That's wrong of me to think that, because she's living in a different time. And to shut her down like that is only going to take away from her self-worth and self-esteem. And I'm going to tell you something. It's not even just self-esteem and self-worth. I got kids all the time is my parents don't trust me. When I talk to the parents, they're like, I don't trust anybody. That's an issue because
Exactly.
it's showing up. It's showing up in your parenting. It's showing up. And now your kids are suicidal. Your kids are self harming because they feel trapped now. They feel they're in this bubble and the boundaries aren't keeping them safe. The boundaries are telling them, I don't trust you. And in all actuality, what I try to explain to my teenage clients is it's not that your parents don't trust you, they don't trust the world. And so they're trying to keep you safe. But kids at 13, 14, 15, 16, their minds will not ever see it that way. So, what has to happen is you, as the adult, to get through the trust issue, to allow your kids to expand and keep boundaries because boundaries indicate that they're safe and they're loved. And kids need to feel safe because if not, kids that push the boundaries, they're looking for boundaries. I'm going to tell you that right now. And this is what Tony and I are talking about is it could be the smallest thing from I don't trust to I was abused as a child. Like it doesn't have to be that big. It could be the whole spectrum. But what we're saying is take a good look at who you are as a parent right now and all the stuff that you need to heal, not fix, heal, go through it to heal with it.
Yeah, and look, and I'm going to give you. By the way, we're going to give you a practical solution to do that. By the way, we're not just saying you've got to do this because it isn't easy, and it's also not that difficult. You just have to put in time and the effort, and understand, and really be willing to do the work. So what I was saying before about the gratitude, I just came from a speaking event that I was at in Miami for some entrepreneurs, and on the last day, I said goodbye to someone I had met, and he'd come down frantic. 5 minutes later, my God, I'm struggling. Could somebody help pray with me? His son was home, and his wife called, and she couldn't wake him up. 15 years old,
Mm,
couldn't wake him up. And of course, I went right to what the problem is right now, right? Fentanyl. Thank God that wasn't it. Apparently, and fast forward, he never had him before. He had a seizure while he was sleeping. They couldn't wake him up, and they took him to the hospital. Thank God he was okay. Um, but the way I grounded him when he was just all over the place. I'm like, okay, let's focus. Think about, listen, how about your other kids? And I started, bringing to him what he's grateful for. And when I did pray with him, me and along with a few gentlemen, and he's like, the way you pray, the whole gratitude thing is being grateful for, be grateful today, pray and be grateful today that tomorrow is that he's healthy and happy, not that he's not going to be sick or that she's not going to be sick or that she's going to be better. Just be grateful forward for the things it is that you want. That's number
mm,
one. One of two things that are really super important because even when your kids are going crazy, perhaps again, what are you grateful for? Maybe you can't think of anything right now. What could you be grateful for? Well, I'm grateful for that I have a roof over my head. Okay, what should you be grateful for? That I have my health and that my child has their health.
right.
Okay, go to a little bit of gratitude first so that grace can kind of show up as you take the next step. The other thing that's super important, both for you to exercise now with your children, but to look back on whatever it is that hurts you. There's that quote that I really love to repeat, and I'm sure you've heard it before as well. You've got to heal what hurt you so you don't bleed on the people that didn't cut you. Well, we tend to
Oh,
be bleeding all over kids.
wait, 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 wait. Say that again. That is amazing.
Thank you. It's you've got to heal what hurts you. Otherwise, you're going to bleed all over the people that didn't cut you. So
Mm,
your kids are going to be paying the price for your wounds of the past, whatever they were. So you've got to heal those dams, right? And by the way, when you heal those wounds, guess what? You're going to start to trust a little bit more as well, because those barriers that you put up to keep all the bad from coming in, unfortunately, also keep the good from coming in, to keep the love and the connection and the trustworthy people from coming in. They're staying out with the marauders as well. But the reality of it
right,
is, you can't. And chances are you don't really feel love the way you'd like to feel love because you're closed off to the world. And in order to really truly feel love, by the way, I know this isn't the conversation, but it led there. And it's also a very important part of the parenting conversation is if you're keeping the love from coming in because you don't want to get hurt. So you get hurt, you shut down your heart. Well, that, what else that does? That keeps love from coming in. So
mm,
when you never feel satiated, you never feel like you're really your husband, your wife, you just don't feel that love. Well, perhaps it's not them. Perhaps it's you that are a little too closed off. Perhaps you're so worried and you're so distrusting of the world that you think you're going to get hurt because you've been hurt before. In fairness, I understand.
right.
Because of that, you're keeping the love that you so desire from coming in. And when you don't feel that love, then perhaps we take it out on our kids, or perhaps we don't stand up at work and we come home and take it out on our kids. So I'm going to fast forward because I know we're diverting a little bit. So I'm going to bring it back to center. Say the forgiveness piece is so uber important, because when you forgive the people, the situation, what happened in the past, when you can forgive that, that's how the healing begins. And until you forgive, and by the way, forgiveness does not make any of the things that happened bad to you okay. It doesn't give anybody a free pass and saying, listen, it's okay that you did that to me, or that you whatever. It doesn't mean that. It simply helps you to knock down the walls of the prison that you've been living in your own mind. It helps you knock down that great wall of China that you've put around your home to keep you protected, but also keeps the good out. And that's how you start the forgiveness process. You've got to forgive those who hurt you so that you can. That's how the healing starts. That's how you stop the bleeding all over people, by healing your own hurts. Because hurt people do hurt people. Here's the good news: healed people also heal people, which is what Veenu's doing, which is what I'm doing, because we've been healed. So now we're helping to heal people as well, to grow through that trauma. But the most important thing, again, gratitude and forgiveness. And there's a forgiveness exercise. We're not going to go through this, Veenu, because I know that there's not enough time, but I will give the resource. Look up, and maybe through the Tony Robbins, go through to YouTube, look up Tony Robbins in the Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono, I believe is how it's spelled, but it's spelled just like it sounds. Look that up, and it's a forgiveness process, an ancient spiritual Hawaiian prayer that allows you to forgive the people that have hurt you, the situations, the things that have hurt you in your past, so you can let them go and finally be free and be able to love at a deeper level, to be able to understand your kids and deal with them at a deeper level, to be able to understand and sit down with love and grace with your kids. And by the way, here's another important thing: show yourself some grace, because perhaps you're being short with your kids because you're frustrated yourself, because maybe you're not there as much as you'd like to be.
Right.
Perhaps you're
So,
not the parent that you wish that you had as well, and you're only doing what you know. The reality is you've got to forgive your parents for not knowing how you needed to be loved, and what the attention and support that you needed. So
So I wanted to just bring it back to the Ho'oponopono, because we taught our children this at 2 years old, and that's their nighttime prayer, actually. And it's just
awesome.
10 simple words that we say. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And you can look at the way it says, people say it in different orders, but you know what? It's the intention of the prayer. And speaking of intention, we have Erickson, like that, had commented that we might have good intentions to protect our kids from the pains we went through. The impact can crush their confidence to become who they're designed to be. And that, I think, is a reflection of what I was saying, is that, I had the utmost great intention for my daughter, right? To shield her from the pain that I went through, because I felt like that started to shape me to not have self-worth and self-confidence. And in all actuality, that's not it for her. And it comes back to what you were saying just now, Tony, is that, you know, nothing has a meaning but the meaning we give it.
Exactly.
And we may think that they're in pain. They may not think they're in pain, because they have a whole different meaning of what they're putting to the situation. And that's the other thing that we need to understand, is that we can't assume everyone has the same definition about something the way we do. What you think about me is none of my business. It is not my responsibility to change what you've created in your mind by one conversation with me, or by one post you see about me, or something that you heard about me. If you make a distinction about who I am off that, that's all on you. It's not my job to prove to you I'm not that person. Instead, what I would, invite everyone to do is start to look at, who do you surround yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with people you need to prove yourself to? Because if you're doing that, I guarantee your kids are doing that too. We are the model for them. They watch what we do. If we are that, I was just talking to my son who's 24, and he's like, Mom, I got those entrepreneur ideas that, like, I'm going to grow my life. I'm going to be this big thing, and I'm not going to work for anybody. I have all these ideas. And then I got the lazy part from Dad, where I really don't do anything about it. And and he's so right. I've always been that get up person and take action because I do believe nothing, not one thing in your life will change unless you take action.
Well, everybody wants change, but few people are willing to change, right? Everybody
Correct.
wants change, but nobody's willing to change. And you know what? Here's the reality. No change equals no change.
Right. Right. And so, it is time for us to stand up for who we want to be. Tony, when I've always looked at your program, this movement you've created to get up and grow, I always say the first thing says is get up. We got to stop laying down, stop closing our eyes to who we were, just getting totally satiated with, well, that was the past and my past doesn't equal my future. So I don't need to do anything with it. You need to go back and, Tony, you and I have learned this from several of the events we've been to, but we got to blame effectively. And I think that's Byron
Yeah.
Katie, right? That we got to blame effectively. Like if you're going to blame me for all the bad in your life and all the horrible things I did to you, blame me for all who you are today
That's right.
because of the person I was towards you. And that is so important. And that's part of the healing process too, is that until you can really look at everything in your past and reframe it by seeing the good in it, the gratitude. It's like what Tony was saying is like, what could you have been grateful for in that moment that happened to you? What should you be grateful for in that moment that happened to you? And what are you grateful for that moment that happened to you? That is when the true healing really begins. And that's where we start to grow through what we went through.
100%. Because again, and that what should you be grateful for? I'll tell you what that is. Each one of it is it's going to be a different answer. Yet the question, the way it should be answered is, what did you learn from it? That's what you
Great question.
should be grateful for. What was the lesson? You know what? I'm grateful for every bad SOB that's come into my life. I'm grateful for the difficult people that have come into my life. I I'm not grateful for them when they're there, but once they finally make their way out of my life and they finally leave, whether I take out the trash or the trash takes itself out, I'm grateful for them. Why? Because it shows me who not to be.
Mm,
It gives me an example of how not to act, how not to treat people, what not to do, right? I learned how not to treat my kids. I learned how not to treat my wife, right? I learned, but at the same time, I've got to blame effectively. You know what? Put a roof over our heads. We were never hungry. We unfortunately not a whole lot of money, so we didn't have what we wanted when we wanted it. We had cookies maybe once a month, so that kind of thing. And we did vacation every 2 years. We'd go to back home to Portugal for a couple of weeks, and so there were some good things. I do have my work ethic because of him. So
mm,
because of my father. You're in a bad relationship. You're at war with your ex-husband, your ex-wife. You're getting divorced. Stop. What could you be grateful for? What should
mm,
you be grateful for? You've got to remember that you were, and this is an important part because there's so many families, broken families, that this is an important part, and this is one of the things that affects kids the most, even though you think it doesn't. The reality is this: stop. What could you be grateful for? They gave you that child. They
mhm,
helped you raise that child. At some point, you were in love with this person. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been married if you did get married. Or perhaps it was a one night stand, whatever. I don't know. But you know what? Listen, be grateful for that good time you had. I don't know. You could always be grateful for something, right?
right.
What if you so blame effectively? Blame them for the if you're going to blame them for the bad, as you say, you've got to blame them for the good. And here's the thing, because by the way, I don't know how much more time we have, so I don't want to
We
go.
we we have some time. You're good.
Yeah, I don't want to start something that I can't close the loop on. Uh, so the one thing that you and I have both learned, and this is something that changed my life 23 years ago, is that life is happening for us and not to us.
So wait, I want to also just add to that because I have learned this recently that's changed. It's not only happening for us, but it's happening through us.
100%.
So I like literally changed that because again, where if I say it's happening for me, I'm putting the responsibility again on for me, but it's happening through me. Each experience we have, each emotion we have, each thought we have has come through us in that moment. So there
100.
is no blame, right? There's no blame of it, because when we say, oh, why did this happen to me? There is a sense of blame. Oh, it
But
happened
blame
for me.
who? Right. But here's the thing: when we dig into to blame who, when you
Right.
say life happening for me, okay, maybe it was happening through your dad, through your mom to you, for you. Why? The universe, God, whoever, whatever you believe in. This is perhaps just the way it's supposed to be, because I think that life is always preparing us for what it is we say we want. So life is
Mm,
always giving us these lessons, these tests. And until we pass the test, we can't become the person we need to become in order to get the thing we say we want.
right.
Because imagine 5 years ago at this show, 5 years ago, somebody said, Veenu, I've got a great opportunity. Here's this show. What would you do at the show if you weren't ready for it? You wouldn't do it. You'd
I
probably pass.
wait.
You'd wait, and then the opportunity would be gone, right?
Mm,
You have to become the person you are today in order to be able to do this. You have to
100%.
become the person you have to become in order to be the leader you are today. You had to go through the fire. You know, the fires of our lives, the storms of our lives, not only do the storms come to wash away the dirt of yesterday, to wash away all that crap, to wash away the tears at times, to wash away the crap that doesn't belong in our lives. That's why I'm grateful for all the people that are no longer in my life,
Right.
because they came in for a purpose, for a time, the whole thing, season and reason and everything else.
Yeah.
But they came through for me to learn the lesson from them, or perhaps for them to learn the lesson from me. And then they had to leave, because sometimes when we try to hang on to everybody, you can't. If you're holding on to yesterday's, everything from yesterday, with both your bags are full, how can you possibly put in any new experiences? How can you possibly open your arms to the new experience, to the new person, to the new opportunity and possibility? You can't. You've got to forgive. You've got to let go. You've got to learn the lessons life was trying to teach you, molding you into who it is that you're becoming, so you could become the better mother, the father, the better spouse, the better human, right? It comes with things that are happening for us. That is life, and I'm like, but I do have, I like to equate back to a video game. And this is even something your kids, but before I get started on that, what did you want to say to that?
So I just wanted to say also, just another tip when we're looking at like how do we heal ourselves so we can heal our kids, right? And it is, ask yourself, am I the victim or I'm the hero? Because when we're in the victim, we're always like, this happened to me, why? And you stay as the victim. How could you flip the story to where you're no longer the victim? Because if you're going to be in the victim all the time, your kids are going to learn that too. And it's always going to be poor me. And you're not going to grow in that state. You're not going to grow in the state of poor me. Why did this happen to me? I'm this way. They're right about me. That's all victim. But if you were going to turn that around and say, you know what? How do I become victorious in the story? Right? How do I become above this story? How do I turn this into a great hero story where I'm the hero in it? Because you learned the lesson. So I can take anything in my past, when I was bullied, when I was like caught up in the battered women syndrome with relationships, I can look at everything now and I can always find what my greatest opportunity was in those moments. And I am proud of them. I am proud for the decisions, because I tell kids all the time, you're going to make the right decision for you. You may get in trouble for it, but that is the right decision for you in this moment, because you're going to have a lesson in that. And that lesson's not going to be shown right away. It may be 10 years from now. You're going to look back and say, I remember when I was 15 years old and I got so busted for this opportunity. And you're going to say, and I'm so glad, because look at what I created. And I had no idea. You just flipped the story. You're no longer the victim. So get out of being victim. Teach your kids not to be the victim anymore. And I just want to add one more thing before you go on to your next thought, Tony, is there's a woman named Kendra, and she's part of my team with my Joseph McClendon stuff that I do. And she said, good luck, bad luck, who knows? So when something happens to you and you're like, "Hi, it's just bad luck." Is it? Is it really bad luck? I mean, it may feel like that in the moment, but 2 minutes later, something else happened. You're like, "Oh my gosh, thank God I wasn't on that plane. Thank God I missed that plane." Right?
Yeah.
It's like good luck, bad luck, who knows? And I started to tell myself that when I got disappointed in something, because I learned this 2 months ago. And so something would happen. I'm like, oh, I can't believe that happened. Why did this happen? And I'm like, well, good luck, bad luck, who knows? And it just totally, that reframe of that question changes it all to, it's not really that bad, because our feelings and our thoughts are not real anyway. It's the energy we give those thoughts and feelings that make it real in that moment, that create that reality. So I just wanted to add that to that whole process of, life happening for us and through us versus to us, and not being the victim anymore.
100%. You know what you said, that then you just triggered like four different thoughts in my mind,
We
and
always
I'll
do this to
just
each other.
yeah, I know it's great. And then listen, this is why these conversations are so good, and we can yeah, endless. Um, what I tell my kids is that you are free to make the decision, the choice. You're free to make the decision. You are, however, not free from the consequences. So, what are those consequences going to be? So that's one of the things that I say. The other thing is that, um, a friend of mine says, "Okay, so that happened. So what?
Now
Now
what?
what? What are you going
Yep.
to do about it now? How are you going to move forward with that?" And the other thing is that you said that, just this is so true, is we're always asking God, the universe, whoever, whatever you believe in, when you pray or when you're, doing visualization, whatever it is, we're always asking for these things. But so many times the things happen, they're not what they're supposed to be, or they happen, and because of that thing happened, something else better, you miss something out on something else better, and you perhaps see it. Most of the times you don't even see it. But how about
Mhm.
this? How about thanking God for the unanswered prayers? Oh,
Yes.
imagine you got everything that you ever asked for. Oh my God, am I grateful? Like, some of the things that have happened with me in the past with business
Yes.
and with betrayal. Thank God they didn't work out, because had
Right.
I fixed the relationship that I was trying to fix, it would just the damage would have been even greater. So I thank God for unanswered prayers on a regular basis. I thank God for the people that are no longer in my life. That goes going back to what I said earlier. So again, so much, but I'm not going to go too far in any one of these thoughts. Otherwise, we're gonna this is going to be a 3-hour show. So I want to give this analogy to everybody, because I think that this is, because we're talking about kids and children and raising kids and everything else. I'm going to give everyone this analogy to life and the things that are happening for us or through us, or however you'd like to look at that. You've got to look at life. So we all have children. They all play video games, and I'm depending on your age group, just about anybody. If you're under 65 or something, you played a version of a video game at some point. You agree with that? Whether it be
Yes.
Atari,
I mean, Super
whether it was
Mario Brothers, Nintendo. Come on,
like, or,
1980.
or even or even before that, Atari with Centipede or
Yep.
whatever.
Or ColecoVision, Pitfall.
Exactly. So think about what would happen in those games. First you grab the game. You don't know how to use the controller. You don't know how to use anything, and then you start to play the game, and it's so difficult. Just moving to the next screen or moving 5 feet is difficult. You don't know what to jump over, what to hit, what to grab, what to pick up. But then after a while, you start to get comfortable. You're like, oh yeah, I got to just break this box, and I got to get this mushroom, and I got to get this thing, and I got to jump, and I got to go down that hole, and I got to do this. And you're feeling confident. You're feeling good, right? Woo! Level one, baby, almost at the end. What happens at the end of level one? In every single game, you face a boss. You
Yeah,
face
the dragon or
a
something.
challenge.
It's something
You
big.
face a bigger problem that you haven't seen yet. But the
Mm.
things that you've learned on that level are going to help you at least kind of stay in the game for a little bit. But you quit, you try, you go for 2 days, and you finally break through that one game, that one board, and you're like, yes. And that's what needed to happen for you to get to the next level of your life. Sorry,
Mm.
of the video game. So now you're at second level of the video game. And now you're playing, you feel more confident, you got the control in your hand, you know what you're doing, you know which box to break, you know where to get the weapon, you know where to get the power up and everything else, and you're going, and then you come across that boss you just beat on level one. And you're like, damn, I just beat him. But it took you a little longer, but now it takes you about 20 minutes, not 2 days, and you beat him. You're like, yes. And you keep going, you're happy, you're like, you're feeling really good. You're like, I got this. Live, loving life. What happens at the end of level two?
A bigger
Boom,
problem.
an even bigger problem, an even bigger boss, an even bigger challenge. But you know what? You've already learned how to fight the other boss. You've learned some more skills along the way. and you start fighting that big boss, and it takes you a day or two or however long it takes. You have a choice. You can not fight him anymore and stay on level 2 and just go back in the game and just keep replaying that game. Or you can fight that boss, do what it takes, and then get to the next level. But you can't get to the next level of life, of the video game, until you break that boss, until you learn that lesson.
Right.
That that the video game is trying to teach you. So then you go to level 3 and you're going through the whole thing. And there's the boss from level 1. There's the boss from level 2. And what happens at the end of level 3? The video game gives you another challenge. And if you want to get to level 4, you've got to step up your game and you've got to face the problem. I mean, the monster, the villain, the boss at the end of that level, if you want to get to the next level of your life. So my friends, every next level of the game of life is going to require a next level of you. You want to get better at parenting your kids, and this can be applied to parenting your kids. This could be applied to your relationship. This could be applied to business. It could be applied to everything. The next level of your life, you want tomorrow to be better. You've got to be better today. And the decisions you make today are going to determine the tomorrow you're going to have. They're going to determine who you're going to be tomorrow. But you've got to face the demons. You've got to face the problems. You've got to forgive the unforgivable. You've got to accept the love and the hug you didn't get and the I love yous that you didn't get. I got my first one at 37 from my father, and he said it in Portuguese he said it in English because he couldn't connect with the emotion enough in Portuguese, which is his native tongue, to say it. So he said it in English because it was easier. It was more disconnected. So you've got to accept the I love yous. You've got to accept the hugs. You've got to accept the love. You've got to accept the forgiveness. You've got to accept all of those things that you didn't get. And you've got to forgive so that you can grow to the next level, so that you can see what's on the other side. Because you know what? Next level of life, level 4 is even better. The graphics are better. Hell, the whole game has changed. Now the graphics are incredible. Level 5 is even greater. And level God, it just keeps getting better. But you have to grow into who you need to become to get to those levels. Otherwise, you know what? You're going to do what many people do. They just stay at level 2 because they don't want to face that demon. And then they wonder and they get angry with their friends that are at level 3 and 4 playing life at level 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and saying, God damn it, that lucky SOB. No, they did the work. They faced the demon. They faced
it's not, is it, luck, good luck, bad luck, who knows, right? Like he didn't have luck or good luck. I mean, who knows that? I wanted to just say something also with a beautiful analogy. First of all, Tony, thank you so much for that, because there's so much to add on to that. And one of the things I say is that because I'm like, while you're talking about this, I'm thinking to myself in Super Mario Brothers, right? Like when I'm going up against trying to save the princess, right? On every level, you had that bigger thing that you had to fight. And what I realized is that once I won my level 1 and I got to level 2, what made me confident that I could beat that dragon or whatever again was because I already did it, and success leaves clues. I had to ask myself, what did I already do to get through this? And what can I add to that? And so that's what I've done in life too. When people say, how do you go from being 21 years suicidal on antidepressants, anti-anxiety, I was in a psych hospital at 15 cutting and all this other stuff. How do you go from that to this? Because
you finally saved the princess.
Correct. And I took everything I was learning and I took action. And then when that didn't work, I went back to what did work and I added it. And then I added more strategy for the next level that got harder in life. And I'm still doing that. I'm still showing my kids that the growth never stops. My kids asked me last week, like, oh, you're leaving? And I said, yeah, but this time I'm leaving because I'm going to come back a better mom for you. I'm going to come back a better wife for daddy. I'm going to come back a better me for myself. And that is why I have to go, because the learning never stops. And, we get so, satiated with just serving and giving and serving and giving. But I think that's the biggest thing I've actually gave to my kids in 2022 is watching me get on a plane to go participate this time as someone who had fresh eyes and got the learning because I was hungry to grow. And I started to connect all these things. And one of the things that we know I learned about was the emotional threshold. That's when we get change. And it's exactly like in the video game. Why do people stay on level 2? Because they don't reach that emotional threshold yet to push through it.
Well, they're
They're
afraid
going to
of failing.
stay.
They're afraid of
Correct.
failing. And they're afraid of the judgment that's going to come from other people. By the way, who the hell are all those other people anyway?
Right.
Who,
Right.
right?
And I love like the quote, I think it's Dr. Seuss. It's my favorite quote. Those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter.
Well,
And
I do
it's
that all the
something
time.
that's one thing that I finally, after many years, really got into my body this past week is that I'm going to be the best version of me. And if you don't like it or you have a different interpretation of what that best version of me looks like, not my problem. And that is what I want to give to my kids. Can you think about, for all my listeners, think about this. If you were able just to teach your kid to not care what other people think, to not care about judgment, to take the feedback for what's going to work for them and leave the rest behind. What kind of life would they have when they became an adult? Because, like I always say on my show, this is our boot camp from birth to 18. What we install in our kids with values and the rules to those values, and what we believe is acceptable, what we believe is not. If we got rid of the judgment now, what kind of adult would they be in their life? Who could they be? Who would they be? And that is to me the biggest gift. And I think, and Tony, that's why I wanted to bring you on because this is so serendipitous that, this all these changes are happening. I bring you on because that's what it is. We have to grow through what we go through so we don't give it to our kids. That is like
Absolutely.
the message here. So we have like 4 more minutes. So let's give our listeners some good stuff, Tony. What can they take away to really start making these shifts and really start putting that one foot in front of the other and go and save the princess?
And remember that princess, that prince, that king, that knight, that thing you're trying to get, that's you. And that's what life is
Right.
about. Because at the end of the game of life, you get to be. That's life is about being and learning and creating and growing. So imagine that again, every next level of your life is going to demand the next level of you, and you should be growing. You shouldn't be that playing level 2 for the 50th year. I mean, for the 50th time, right? I hope you guys are
Yeah.
catching that, right? You
Yep.
shouldn't be playing that. It's living that same year 50 times. That, has the saying goes, that so many people die at 25 and get buried at 75, right? So their dream dies at 25 and they live the same year for the next 50 years. They get buried at 75 without having really lived because they never got to the next level of their life, because they never stepped up, because they were too afraid of judgment. They were too afraid of what other people thought. They're too afraid to live life. So they just live the same level of their life over and over again. They never really got to become victorious. They never really got to become the hero of their own life. They just survived through life. And life is not to
Right.
be survived.
To be
It's to
lived.
thrive. It's to
Yes.
live, experience. Life is to be experienced, not just survived. So I challenge everyone to live more, to love more, to forgive, to practice gratitude, and to
Yeah.
really practice grace on yourself and on your kids. And I promise you, when you look back at your life, you'll regret the things that you didn't do much more than the things that you did. So just play the
Absolutely.
game of life. Yeah, it's your game. You don't have to go by anybody else's rules in particular.
Yeah. And
Just don't play.
I was just saying last night to my son and my mom, I say, the graveyard's the richest place in the world. And my mom was like, why? I'm like, because that's where all the hopes and dreams are buried.
That's it.
It's where people, and it just aligns with what you were saying. We do have a question here from Eric. He says, if a parent is not happy with themselves and projecting the victim on their kids, what are some tips to separating those feelings, emotions, to see their child as an individual to support them? The first thing I'm going to say is exactly what Tony and I've been saying. Heal thyself. Joseph McClendon III always says, physician, heal thyself. You have to heal yourself. You need to ask yourself, what has to happen in order to heal these so I could become the hero, not the victim. And to see your kids separately is to know that your kids are not here to live your life. That is not why you had kids. You did not have kids as a redo to live your life that you didn't get to live. You had kids to love them and guide them and I say that again, to guide them, not to dictate to them. They are going to grow up and they are going to make their own decisions. And you're not going to be happy with them because you have an expectation for them. Get rid of your expectations and find what you could be grateful for in your own child. What are you grateful for? What should you be? I love that. What should you be grateful for? What could you be grateful for? And what are you grateful for already in the child that you have been an amazing guide to? And Tony, do you want to give some of your pointers to that question as well?
Yeah, again, I would say the same thing. Just again, forgive the mistakes of the past. Forgive your own mistakes with them. Show yourself some grace. Show them some grace because they're just growing through life as well. And it's our job. Our children don't really belong to us. I want to say that my kids belong to me. They certainly don't belong to the government. Let's make that perfectly clear. However, they do kind of belong to the universe, to the larger, to society, so to speak. Again, not the same thing as being owned by government. I just want to be perfectly clear with that. The reality is we are their stewards. We are their guides. We are supposed to be preparing them for the life ahead, to be a good human, to contribute, to give back, to love on other people, not to be a bad person and be unhappy. We're teaching them to live and to hopefully have an even better life than what we've experienced. That's what we're here to do. But it starts with, honestly, it starts with forgiveness, showing yourself some grace, breathe. What are you grateful for? What could you be grateful for? What should you be grateful for? And what are you grateful for tomorrow? Grateful forward. What are you
I
grateful
love
for
that.
no matter the outcome?
I love that. Grateful forward. Yeah. And find empowering questions. Like, start your day off with your kids asking empowering questions because how we start our day off is where it's going to guide our day where it's going to go. And so, one of the things that I say to my kids is, what kind of day are you going to have? And what is that going to look like to you? So they have a target of what they're going towards that day, and then when they come home, I was like, how was your day? What specifically made it that way? Did you have the kind of day you say you're going to have? So it's holding them accountable. So every day they know I'm going to ask that. So guess what they're aiming for? Having that great day, that extraordinary day. We always talk about different descriptive words, so it's not always a good day. Extraordinary, it's just unstoppable, outrageously great. Like, we give them different adjectives so they can have a more colorful life ahead of them. And they get to describe it through their eyes, through what they describe an outrageous, incredible day looks like. And then I keep them accountable for that. So start your kids off with great questions in the morning and see how things just start to shift. Help them again, help give your kids a childhood they won't have to heal from. And that is my mission. That is my mission in life, is to bring this information, to bring amazing speakers like Tony to my show so you too can help give your kids a childhood they won't have to heal from by learning these tips and strategies. Tony, is there one last thing you want to say? And then we are out.
Yeah. Things. One, three, write down three things in the morning, three things at night you're grateful for. Have your kids do the same. It will give them a different life experience. Listen, the one thing I want to make sure that your audience knows, there's an amazing program that I'm working on now. And I'm not going to say program. It's an all new marketplace to help people make more money in a very different way. The name of the company is Noble Us, Noble Us, Noblest. If you go to noblest.com/partners/liberty and sign up for a free store. That's an $800 value till the end of the year. January 1st, it goes to $800 per month, $799. And it's an all-inclusive e-commerce platform that offers you all of the tools and resources you'll need to run a successful online business. You don't have to source product. You don't have to shop for it, store, pack, ship, credit card, customer service, none of it. We've done all of that. We have over 600,000 products that you use every single day already loaded into the store, that all you have to do is buy from your own store and invite people to purchase from your store, and it'll change your life. It'll make you a couple $100 a month to a couple of thousand to much more than that, depending on how big you want to take it. So
Thank you so much, Tony. Okay, thank you so much, Tony. If you are finding value in the conversation here on our show, please join our Redefine Parenting group on Facebook for even more tips and conversation. Do someone you know a favor and share my group with them as well, so they too can hear what they need in order for them to feel supported in their parenting journey. This show can be also heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.